Okay, so now we are on live, everyone. So, alrighty, let's see. Okay, so I guess I'll just kind of go for it. Okay, so I'm Melissa Cordier. Um, so the threat that I decided to talk about is abortion. I've just kind of focused this whole semester on it. And in the article, it's called Abortion History, and it's by Joan Johnson Lewis. And it said in 1965, all 50 states banned abortion with some exceptions, which varied by state. And the exceptions were to save the life of the mother in case of rape or incest, or if the fetus was deformed. And then in 1973, the Supreme Court declared that most existing state abortion laws unconstitutional, which I thought was super interesting. This decision rules out any legislative interference with the first trimester of pregnancy, and then it put limits on what restriction could be passed on abortion in later states of pregnancy. So this is when in 1973, pro-life and pro-choice was basically, that was when it evolved. As I was thinking about this history about abortion, I don't know, so I'm 20 weeks pregnant and being that far along, it just fathoms me how abortion isn't a big deal for people. So when I went in for my 8-week doctor appointment, I was like amazed about how we could like see the baby moving and see the heartbeat and if that isn't proof a baby is alive in the first couple weeks, I just don't understand like what proof you need. And so I guess I'm finally at the point where I should be feeling the baby soon, and how could someone think it would be okay to abort a child because to him or her it's not yet alive? And so when I finally found out I was pregnant, I realized the possibility of obviously losing my baby in a miscarriage, and that thought totally saddened me. And even though a miscarriage would never be my choice, there are obviously women that choose to lose a baby. And people don't think abortions affect other people. And so there was a study done that actually talked about abortions and adoption rates. And so obviously there's a lot of people that they are infertile and they can't have kids, which is really sad for them. And they want kids, and so adoption, it said the rate of adoption of children born to white women declined by 34 to 37% in states that repealed restrictive abortion laws. So because there's not as many abortion laws now, these people are basically they just have the abortions and they don't give up the adoption, like the baby for adoption, for those ones that can't have babies. So then there was also a study done about men, because I don't think because obviously the woman chooses if they have the abortions or not. And so there was a group of men that they like divided into two groups. It was one that they had the partner that had a pregnancy that ended up in abortion, and then there were men that were raising children as married or they were cohabiting. And so they said the physiological distress scores were higher for those men whose partners had abortions. And so, I don't know, between those two different studies, I've realized that it doesn't just affect the women. It affects the children and the families around them. And so the laws that we have today we have public funding. And so it's talked about, well, the abortion laws that are like kind of trying to stop it. It says most states prohibit the use of state funds to pay for abortions, except in like few circumstances, like like rape and like the ones I've already talked about. And then the other law was the gestational limit. So most states ban abortions after a certain gestational time period. So it's after the fetal it is, like, you can see the fetal viability. And so that's usually, most states it's like 20 weeks and the height is like 24 weeks. So those are the laws that are happening right now, but I feel like one of the questions that she asked us was, is it individual or family focused? And I think it's individual focused. Like, it doesn't really talk about the family, it's really about the woman's choice. Because I think even these laws are probably still going to decide to get an abortion. And I think these laws, they address the symptoms and the problem, but I think it has to go beyond this because obviously the women that want the abortions, they're going to get around it, like they always do. And so there was another article that I thought was so interesting. He said banning abortion doesn't reduce the demand for abortions and simply leads to women simply leads to women using unsafe and illegal means to end their pregnancies. So obviously it starts now. Like we have to, we got to be the ones that kind of step up and stand for what's right. I had a friend that she was talking about abortion. She did have an abortion, and I didn't know what to say. And I feel like now looking back on it, that was my chance of saying what I believe. So I think we as a group, like, we have to stand up for what's right and tell them what we think. So, because when the woman becomes pregnant, there's obviously a baby getting ready to come into this world. So, yeah, there's that. The end.
Awesome. So I had a question.
Yes.
The question that I had, let me see.
Is Terry still there?
Terry, are you still here?
He just stepped out. Sorry, I'm holding the phone. I'm his
No, you're
wife.
fine. I was like, I just don't want him to be disconnected. I would feel really bad.
So my question is there ever an occasion where you think it's acceptable for an abortion to take place?
So, okay, I was thinking about that, and obviously they talk about, like, rape or, like, all those different things, or I think, like, when the mother's life is in danger, obviously, like, you kind of have, like, that's a human too.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like that's like a really hard decision, I think. Like, it's very personal because rape, like, obviously there's like, keeping that child is, like, detrimental to them or something. But I feel like you don't necessarily have to get an abortion. Like, you could give it up for adoption.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess that's my opinion. I feel like that's what I was thinking about. I was like, I just don't know if there, like, what exception there is. Like, I don't know, being all religious now, like, thinking about Heavenly Father, I was like, well, is there an exception for it? So I don't know. It's just like, I don't know. I'm interested to, like, kind of ask Heavenly Father that, like, well, is there, like, should it? Because, like, it's like a human, like, I don't know. So yeah, that's kind of my answer, the best answer I could give.
Oh, that's a good answer.
Okay, now Madison's gone.
We lost her.
Tell about Scott.
Oh, and we're supposed to have somebody named Scott on board with this, right? But
yeah,
you've never seen him?
Yeah, I added him tonight. I don't know where he's at. I feel really bad. I don't know what to do. Well, I added him, and I tried to write him on the discussion board. And I emailed him, like, a long time ago when I found out he was in our group, and he never got back to me. And so I don't know what to do. So there's that. Sorry, I don't know.
You tried. I think we all tried. We also we lost Madison. So.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to add her. Okay, do you guys want to just keep going because we're still on air, and I'll just keep trying to add her.
Okay, sounds good. So I will go with mine. Let me see real quick. Okay, so good evening, everyone. My name is Vanessa Martin, but you guys already know that. My topic I have chosen to address is pornography and the threat to family and children. So according to the Huffington Post, 30% of all data transferred across the internet is porn. YouPorn, one of the larger video porn sites, streams 6 times the bandwidth of Hulu. For myself, I know that I spend around 2 hours a day on my cell phone surfing the internet, which is a lot, but I figure I'm being realistic here. If I were a porn user, this would mean that I would spend around 36 minutes a day looking at pornography. Spending this amount of time every day looking at pornography can really damage your relationship with your family members, but also with other relationships as well. Growing up, my siblings and I loved going to my dad's office and helping him and his business partners with things such as stuffing envelopes or shredding documents. I remember one day going over to my dad's office, and I was going to surprise him with a birthday card I'd made him earlier that day. When I was walking to the office, my dad was nowhere to be seen, but instead I caught my father's coworker looking at pornography on his computer. When he noticed me at the doorway, he quickly turned off his computer and said that he was looking for a swimsuit for his wife. According to the Family Research Council, pornography can be just as damaging to family relationships as real-life infidelity. People who are addicted to pornography not only lose their spouses, but suffer financially. 58% suffer considerable financial losses, and about a third lose their jobs due to their addiction. The sad truth is that my experience is not a unique one. Pornography is viewed on the daily and affects millions of individuals, both young and old, male and female. Because of the First Amendment, pornography is not illegal as long as it does not include children under the age of 18, and obscenity, which takes on different meanings depending on who you ask. The First Amendment protects pornography because it can be seen as a way of expressing oneself. Despite being such a huge issue, the government has not implemented any programs or regulations regarding pornography. However, there are organizations that are working on educating individuals and their families about the harmful effects of pornography. Some of you might have heard about this, but Fight the New Drug is a nonprofit organization that is working hard to educate the public of the damaging effects of pornography and advocate for children and families. This organization addresses the problem by sharing personal accounts of individuals affected by pornography directly and indirectly, and the symptoms by giving facts and ways to overcome the addiction through rehabilitation programs. Fight the New Drug does not replace the parents' responsibility to teach their children. Instead, it is a tool to help parents and children educate themselves on the subject and to make individuals more aware of the harmful effects. The harmful effects that viewing pornography can cause. The family is the first line of defense in protecting children. It is important that parents don't hold back on the subject and talk to the children regarding porn. Studies have shown that families who have a close relationship with their children are less likely to view pornography than those children who do not have a close relationship with their families. The question is now, how can we help fight against this harmful issue and make a difference? We can start by educating our family on this topic and make sure our family members are all on the same page with this issue. We can send around a petition to get stricter ratings on PG-13 and rated R movies. We can donate or purchase a shirt from Fight the New Drug and advocate for real love and families. There are many things we can do in order to get this issue more known. We just need to be willing to put ourselves out there and stand up for the family. So, yeah, that was it.
Yay! That was good.
Claps there, claps.
Does anyone have questions? I was trying to think of one, but I don't know.
One question. So I read recently that Utah was trying to pass a bill to declare pornography a public health crisis, and so I don't know if that was successful or not because I haven't read anything about it recently, but I was wondering if you'd heard about that and if you knew.
I have heard about that. I actually, one of the general authorities actually is really good friends with the mayor. It was a mayor, right, that said that he declared pornography as a public health crisis. But yeah, it was the mayor of Utah, and I have heard about it. But as far as I know, I don't think it has been passed yet.
Okay.
So.
So, do you know what if that would affect exactly if it was passed? How that would change things if it was considered a public health crisis?
I do not, unfortunately. I should know, but I don't. I'm guessing it would be stricter laws for pornography for adults. As far as children and pornography, they do have really strict laws there. So I think if it was considered a public health crisis, I think they'd do more to block certain commercials in Utah, or probably ban some ads that are being shown, things like that.
Well, hopefully that does pass then.
Yeah, I hope so. Anybody else have any questions?
Awesome, Vanessa.
Good job.
Thank you.
Hey, Vanessa, just and what's amazing for me, like Fight the New Drug, because it's called that. The easy access through the internet and all these things. I mean, I'm amazed. I don't even know how my computer works, and I'm scared to death of it. So I'm just glad I don't know. I don't even know how the phone works. I'm glad I can see everybody for once. But anyway, it is truly amazing, and I guess I'm just commenting on it. But your generation and you young ladies are having to deal with this is just amazing. My wife's to my left, and I will tell you, she has access to everything that I have access to, and things I don't need access to, I think we have codes or something, or even my own kids, return missionaries, they make sure that she puts guards on things and passwords, and they have to get them from her just to be able to access basic things, because they're smart enough to know the incredible dangers of pornography. So frightening. Even in the church, that they're even his friends are return missionaries, and they like to go to casinos and gamble. I don't even know if you girls know this sort of thing's happening. It's like, really? No, kids are preaching holders that are gambling. So the new drugs, wow.
And it's becoming, like Madison said, it's becoming a public health crisis. And Utah has seen it and is trying to pass a law against it, but other than that, no one else really. Not that no one else of the other states really care, but there hasn't been an outcry for pornography to be banned. So
certainly not. Yeah. Good job. Thank you, Vanessa.
Thank you.
Okay, Madison.
Who's going? Madison going?
Madison.
All right. Yeah. I can go next. So I did abortion just like Melissa, and I also did my previous papers this semester on it. And so I've learned a lot about it this semester. And as Melissa mentioned before, in 1973, the famous Supreme Court case, Roe v. Wade, legalized abortion in the United States if it was instituted during the first trimester. An abortion that occurs in the later trimesters and after the term of viability is a state-by-state choice. And so it's an extremely controversial topic in politics today. And the culture trend of women's rights and the philosophy that it is the woman that should be given the choice of the baby's life or death because it's her body that's creating it has given rise to this threat. Since 1973, there have been over 58 million legal abortions in the U.S. alone. In the year 2012, which was the last available government report on the topic, there are 699,000 legal abortions performed. As a whole, 1/3 of pregnant Americans have abortion, and out of the 50 states, 38 of them require parental involvement in this decision, but they allow it. And 1 in 5 women of reproductive age have an abortion in developed countries, and so these statistics are shockingly high. They're incredibly high, and it's crazy how acceptance of abortion as an option for non-harm pregnancy has shifted something that was often punishable by death to this mainstream choice that's widely supported by everybody. And so it kind of begs the question, when did we stop viewing abortion as murder, and how have we become so desensitized? And because we really have become desensitized. So recently, I saw a video on Facebook where they surveyed several individuals on the streets and asked their opinion about abortion to kind of get an idea of what their knowledge was. And all the individuals shown in this video were pro-choice. So they were for abortion, and some of them were really adamantly so. Like, they were totally for it. And then the people that were doing the video, they showed these people a video of an abortion procedure, and most of the people were shown a section procedure done in the first trimester. Some of them were shown in the abortion later trimesters, but this is the first trimester, which so much of the world uses as okay, and where most of the states legalize it and do it without a thought. And this video horrified all these people, and many commented on how they didn't realize how human the baby really was so early on, and they honestly didn't know, and most completely changed their minds about it, and those who didn't weren't so adamant about being pro-choice as they were before. And so it was kind of interesting how deceived these people were, and so I was kind of researching how we got to be so deceived as a culture. And in schools today, we have sex education. The government instigates that in public schools, and as part of that, teach about abortion, but they don't really teach about it in a way that teaches that the baby is a human. They don't refer to the baby as a human life. They refer to it as a fetus. And I think thinking of it as that is easier for us to accept. It's easier to accept that it isn't really a life and it's inconsequential about it when we remain uneducated about its development. And you might have an ultrasound done, but you don't see it in the womb. You don't truly see it. And for most people, seeing is believing, and so they remain really ignorant. And the media doesn't help things because they have flippant, inconsequential messages that they teach on the subject. And so it's just the culture as a whole is really deceiving everybody into thinking that these are fetuses and they aren't infants, and so that it doesn't matter. And when I was researching this earlier, I came across this true account of a woman who had an abortion, and she talked about this, and she said, "I became pregnant as a 17-year-old girl. I was selfish, immature, and scared that my dad was going to be angry with me. I did not see my pregnancy as a child, but rather as a problem to be fixed. My boyfriend, who is 19, did not want me to have an abortion. In fact, he wanted us to get married and start a family, just like his parents had done at that age. But again, I was selfish and scared and said no. I did not want to have a baby or be married to him. The day of my abortion, August 4th, 1987, I went to a call with one of my friends who had already had an abortion and ended the life of my child. I sought no adult counsel, and I never told my parents or aunts or uncles. I don't remember receiving any counsel at the clinic either, but I don't remember much of that day. Immediately, I knew that I was doing something wrong. There was a sense of relief that my problem had been solved. My boyfriend and I dated for a couple more years, and then at the age of 20, I broke up with him and moved back to Tampa to live with my dad. I pushed down my abortion and thought of it as part of my past. I was in a different city where nobody knew. I would just forget it ever happened. Abortion, one of the most grievous sins of our time, taking the life of an unborn child. Some would even call this murder. It's really just semantics, isn't it? Nobody wants to be called a murderer, but we had a child within us, and because of our choice, that child died. That's tough, but I submit to you that I and other women who have had abortions have been deceived. They are deceived by a culture that tells us that it's not a baby, that's just a clump of cells, that's just tissue that does not feel pain. And most recently, that it's their right to choose whether or not they reproduce. I have said it before and will say it again. Only Satan himself could be behind a movement that has women championing for the destruction of their own children. God help us. And I completely agree with her. God help us. But there's also a lot that we can do to help ourselves. And I might surprise you to know this because it surprised me. But right now, Planned Parenthood, that organization, is behind the majority of the sex education that's taught in our public schools today. They kind of came up with this curriculum. And I'm not sure if you guys have been keeping up with the news, but Planned Parenthood encourages abortion. And recently, they've been discovered to be selling the body parts of aborted babies. And it's horrific and terrible, and it's horrific that this is who's behind this education and behind this viewpoint in our schools of what our perspective is. about abortion, and so that has to change if we want our perspective to change. And in March of this year, Oklahoma actually passed a bill that required anti-abortion lessons taught in all public high schools, and they're the first to do so. And so they understand the issue and they're taking action against it. But just one state is not enough, and so we need to kind of advocate for that, for anti-abortion education in the states in which we live, to change that perspective. And also we need to talk about it with our kids. We can't just let the only education that they learn about it be what they learn in school, because that's obviously not the perspective that's, you know, that's good and that values human life. And also we talk about it in church a little bit, but not enough, and so we need to really have those conversations in our own families as well if we want to change that perspective. And by changing that perspective, I think we can really eliminate a lot of abortions, because people don't understand, and that's why they do it. And that's it.
Yay! So
Awesome.
Oh, go for it.
Oh, sorry. Were you gonna say something, Melissa?
No, go for it.
Okay. I was gonna say, Madison, I have a question. What would you say to teenagers who are pregnant and who are thinking about abortion? What would you say to them in order to, I don't know, get your point across and let them know, you know?
I would actually share statistics about, I like how Melissa brought up the point of when, she went to her 8-week ultrasound, how they could, feel the heartbeat and see the baby and stuff. And I would, and there's, you read about pregnancy development, like I did when I was pregnant, and I learned, the heart develops at this stage, so soon, and all these organs are developing so soon and stuff. But I didn't know that until I got pregnant and I researched it, and I was super excited about all that stuff, And so I would inform them, I'd be like, this is, this is when conception happens, and most people, when they find out that they're pregnant, they're about 5 weeks along, and so at 5 weeks, these are the organs that have developed. This is what's going on in your body. This is life that's already well on its way, and inform them that it is life, and so having an abortion is taking away that life, and there's no black and white about it. It is murder, and so.
Yeah. Cool. You answered my question. Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions?
Awesome. Hey, a comment. But that was awesome. You're fully into it. That was great. Here in Phoenix last week, a woman, the police discovered a woman had I don't want to gross you girls out, but she dismembered literally her 3 small children, and and we're horrified that she killed her children. But did you say was it 58 million or 48 million? 58 million abortions have been performed, where, as you said, they're murdered, and there's no public outcry, no horror about this, So it's kind of that's what I thought of when you were talking about this. Pretty amazing. 58 million. Is that what you said?
Yeah, 58 million.
Yeah.
Was that
58
in the
million.
United States or in the nation, did you say?
In the United States.
Sometimes I think if you put things into perspective, I don't know if you've been to a sporting event. For instance, at BYU, the football stadium holds 66,000 people. Sometimes that's what I do, is I look at things like when the Vietnam War that I almost was in. You're talking about a football stadium, people that were killed, that were United States soldiers, for instance. So anyway, just kind of gives you a different way to, try to visualize what you're talking about. 58 million.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
All right, Terry, you want to go?
Yep. Heavenly Father must be just horrified by the whole thing. Are we somehow supposed to be recording it, or are you able to record it? What's happening?
We're recording it. You're good.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Thank you. All right. Can you see me okay?
Mm-hmm.
I have a little picture on my screen, so I'm sitting there going, I do not know. I think you're seeing a T-shirt and me, sort of. Okay. Mine again, it has to do with divorce. That's kind of the subject that I'm working on. In fact, it's why I'm taking these classes, because I'm counseling and helping a lot of people with divorce. So it's kind of, anyway, I've been through it, so I understand the concept. We all know everyone. We all have people that we know that are affected by divorce, as much as 50%. And I would tell you, in my 7 years of study since I got divorced, that the cause eventually is infidelity. And so I'm going to talk a little about the effects of divorce, especially on children. So that's why I'm holding this, and none of my kids are in here listening to me in this part of it. But anyway, caused by infidelity. Someone named Helen Fisher of Rutgers University, her statement is, children of unfaithful parents are at risk for several insecure attachment disorders. And we can all understand that. The greatest one would probably be the issue of a lack of trust that will develop. And so Colorado State University, Aaron Spence says this regarding some more research on this subject. Infidelity is a common precipitant of divorce. He says common, so again, I would tell you that my own personal studies say it isn't just a common one, it's 98% or more. Adolescent children of infidelity may externalize anxiousness and act out with alcohol, drugs, or sex. You may know friends of yours that have gone through these sort of things because of it. They do not know right from wrong and see the world as unsafe and unpredictable. They may develop an insecure or anxious attachment style. This is interesting. Desperately needing closeness while maintaining an acute fear of abandonment. If they develop an avoidant attachment style, they may have a negative view of others and avoid closeness. They may have a shallow commitment to being faithful to a partner. My wife's name is Martha. Her kids fit this to a T across the board. They have almost no attachment to anyone, and so they fit some of these things. Marin G. Callender, in an article called Children of Infidelity, How They Hurt and Heal, it was published by Kindred Media, says this: children of unfaithful parents learn thoughtlessness, that doing what you please is more important than how it affects other people. These children struggle as adults to form intimate relationships and families of their own. The effects of divorce are cumulative and set a trajectory for a child. Their feelings of anger, anxiety, guilt are experiencing this, sadness, and confusion. Again, if you think about as much as 50% of divorces, they estimate, are now ending in divorce, and yet they're still feeling shame from this, even though it's a common disease. Their sense of the world is shattered. Intense insecurity, infidelity creates a need to resolve unfinished business by engaging in the same pattern of behavior. So let me just touch on this personally. My own kids and myself never saw divorce happening, never understood what was going on at the very beginning. So again, my kids, the puzzle didn't fit. And that's what happens for so many children. And we're even counseled as adults to not tell them, let them find out for themselves. But the world is truly shattered. My wife talks about how the day she told her kids, and her youngest was 11, and she was just in tears and going, can't you guys work this out? And not understanding that my wife had endured 20 years of infidelity from her husband. Myself included, and I'm personalizing some of this just so you can sense this, but that I grew up outside of, here I'm sharing this, it's not supposed to be church-wise, but I grew up outside of the church, and so my father divorced 3 times. I resolved unfinished business, as the statement says, by engaging in the same pattern of behavior. Some ways to probably try to combat this, instead of just putting Band-Aids on it, we need to actually be talking and have education about this. So the APA, which is the American Psychological Association, has some workshops and courses about keeping marital education programs, keeping couples together. One of them is called the Couples Communication Program, and was developed by psychologist Sherrod Miller, who's a PhD his colleagues at the University of Minnesota Family Studies Center. And it's a program that focuses on how couples interact. Hopefully, so they get to that, they work things out before they get to the infidelity stage. It teaches them how to map out issues in their marriage and help them become active listeners. Now, more than 70 published studies demonstrate the positive effects of this particular program. Date over 600,000. Another program is called the PAIRS program, without boring you too much. These kind of programs are extremely important. The PAIRS program stands for Practical Application of Intimate Relationship Skills. And it was created by a PhD named Lori Gordon, and it focuses on the emotional issues from couples' past which shape the way they act and react in relationships. That would be particularly effective, for instance, in my situation, to understand why I was doing the things that I was doing. Even though, and in fact, to the point where I was never going to get married and have kids because I didn't want to continue that generational problem. Congress should extend the Federal Healthy Marriage Initiative. And I don't know if you know this, but in 2006, President George W. Bush's marriage initiative, Congress passed legislation allocating $100 million a year for 5 years to more than 100 programs designed to strengthen marriage and family relationships in America, especially among low-income couples. Can you imagine $100 million a year for this? Now, it's important to understand that these programs through the government, unfortunately, they're just cents on the dollar. If it's $100 million, then the actual amount used to truly interact with these people and helping them with their marriage is very low. But these programs are they're equipping poor and working class couples with the relational skills that the better educated peers rely upon to sustain their marriage. That's pretty important. So let me just finish up for you because I was probably going a little too long. It's important to contact your local congressman to try to extend some of these programs. And again, I pointed out though that they are federal programs, and so the actual money that gets to the people is not extremely large. As a police officer, every single day what I was doing was trying to make sure that I put a Band-Aid on things. All I was trying to do is keep people from killing each other on that particular night during my shift, and I mean that literally. What they really needed was preventative programs to get into that would help them with their issues. And the money that we spend on programs such as single parenthood programs, welfare, is so much larger than the actual preventative programs, and that's important. I will just say again that divorce is devastating. I have 7 incredible kids. They are amazing. They're very, very strong, but 7 years later, they're still dealing with issues regarding trust, even though they see my second marriage has been 5 years of a wonderful marriage where 2 people trust each other and there's no infidelity at all. We continue to help them through education and to truly love them. That's it.
Yay.
Awesome.
Good job, Terry.
Like I was reading a whole lot of that. I was reading the exact quotes, but the rest of it I was kind of tossing out there. But thanks for saying it's awesome. It might have been kind of dry and kind of long.
No, I thought you did a great job.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have a question for you, Terry.
Go ahead.
I guess this might be a little bit church related, but in your views, is there a time when you think divorce is definitely necessary or okay to do?
It's probably why I never have to worry about being a bishop. Because I would tell you that once there's infidelity involved, I do not know how people can get the trust back. And marriage is about trust. Otherwise there's way too much time and effort involved in trying to do it. I'll give you a different example. As a high counselor, I watch people come in and I watch the devastation involved. And I can tell you you'll never know the names, but literally 10 years later, for instance, in one situation, the wife still was devastated this happened and still could not get to a point of being able to forgive. In spite of what President Uchtdorf says, it's extremely difficult. In fact, my wife was in town yesterday, and we were babysitting the grandkids, and she was coming over, and they said, look, tell her to stay the heck away. When I said as a bishop, because anyway, the point is I think that when there's infidelity, I don't know how you'd get that trust back. And especially in regards to Vanessa, most of the time the people that are involved in that are lying to themselves and saying they justify why they did and want to continue doing that, in fact. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
It touches everywhere. I've been counseling people now free for about 7 years. I've got 2 Mormon bishops up in Utah. One is seminary teacher, has now lost his job, who is devastated because today he finally admitted to himself that, heck, I realize she really does have a boyfriend. So, in a 20-year marriage, he's losing, etc. So, I stress iron rod, keep serving. There is a way out of it from a church standpoint, but that's a great question, Vanessa. I don't want to ever be the bishop because I think I'd be instantly going beat on you. Okay, call it. What do you girls think about that thought? What do you think? Keep trying to work through it?
I don't know. That's hard.
It's yeah.
I gave you 2 points really quick, and one is that in my experience in 7 years of counseling with people, they discover that their best friend of, like in my case, 25 years, is now my greatest enemy. I'm going to get the bills. I'm going to get stuck with everything. And the second part is tell people keep your covenants, and you'll turn out extremely happy anyway.
Awesome.
Plan B.
Terry, I have a question. What would be like the best way? I don't know, because I haven't gone, like, my parents haven't gone to divorce, or like, I don't. Yeah, like my aunt has, and so her kids were definitely affected by it. And so what's the best way of, like, I guess, talking to them about it? Or, like, do I just not say anything? Or, like, I don't know, what did you do, I guess, like, with your kids? Did you just kind of pretty open about it?
Let me tell you what as far as with my kids personally, church counsel is that you don't tell your kids what the divorce is about, which
right.
Can you imagine how you don't even understand what happened to the puzzle? It just shattered, and you don't even know how to put it back together again. But the reality is that if you talk bad about their mom, or if it's in the case of they're talking bad about their dad, that can be devastating. So I would tell you there are times in life when you lie. And I told my kids at one point when they were totally devastated, and I said, look, I will always love your mom. I got to be honest with you. I don't have any feelings for her at all. So how can you help with that? And by the way, people don't want to talk about divorce. And so that is really pretty devastating for folks. It's absolutely okay to say to your cousins, is it your cousins?
Uh-huh.
Really, and I care about you, and if you ever want to talk, and leave it open to them. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's okay. Just, and I have wonderful friends, and hundreds of them, but they don't want to even come near it. It's okay for them just to go, hey, Terry, you okay? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You guys okay? My cousins, are you okay? And if you ever want to talk about it, I'm here for you. And then, yeah, then you know what you can do that's really cool? Melissa, just follow the Spirit. You'll know what to do.
Right. That's right. Okay. Is there any other questions? Are we done?
We need to call it for everybody. I took too long again.
No, you're great. Okay, so I'll end it.